My brother is dead, and you are thinking about such a thing? I can't believe it. I can't be with you anymore.
My husband Jaden loudly shouted me during the funeral, but I knew that he was just faking his true intention. His body smells of perfume, just like his dead brother's wife.
I want a divorce. Divorce me immediately.
Okay, let's get a divorce then. My husband was stunned for a minute when I accepted the divorce easily, but gradually he began to grin. He probably thinks he can be happy with his dead brother's wife now that he is divorced from me. That's not that easy. I whispered to myself so that no one could hear me. My name is Stella. I live with my husband Jaden and my mother-in-law. My parents already passed away and I have no siblings. My mother-in-law warmly welcomed me as if I were her daughter. I was so happy to have a family because I had been alone and depressed with no one to rely on. I love my mother-in-law and appreciate her very much. My husband had a younger brother, Bobby. Bobby is married to a young woman, and they live near my parents-in-law's house. When I joined the family, Bobby welcomed me with open arms and had the same kindness that my mother-in-law had. We live close to each other, so my brother-in-law's family and our family sometimes travel together. I was very happy with my new family, but those happy days were coming to an end. One day, my brother-in-law Bobby was rushed to the emergency room. I left work and was rushed to the hospital. In the hospital room, my mother-in-law was crying. I sat by her side and asked about his condition. He seemed to have passed the critical stage, but the doctor told us that it was still too early to tell. I held my mother-in-law's shoulder and encouraged her that everything would be okay. Still no sign of my husband or my brother-in-law's wife. I wanted them to come as soon as possible because my mother-in-law must have needed them too. My husband was on an urgent business trip, but it seems he's on his way to the hospital now. But my mother-in-law is at the loss. The fact that she can't even get in touch with Bobby's wife, Karen. I'm wondering if there is any way to contact her. But there was nothing we could do if we couldn't get in touch with her. We just kept waiting and waiting. I wonder how much time passed. Suddenly, we heard footsteps approaching to the hospital room. It was my husband and Bobby's wife, Karen. He explained the situation and brought her to the hospital too. And brought her to the hospital with him. I was glad that they were able to meet up with each other. I was so relieved. But then, I felt a strange sensation. My husband, he smells different. Oh, is he wearing perfume? But I knew it somewhere. I looked over and saw Karen holding my brother-in-law's hand. A few days later, my brother-in-law passed away. The wake and the funeral had gone without a hitch, and things had settled down to a certain extent. I noticed that my husband was taking care of Karen in a very friendly way. It is true that she must be in more pain than I am because her husband just passed away, and she probably needs a lot of emotional care. However, she seemed to be very close to my husband and even seems to be having a good time. I found myself doubting their relationship when her beloved husband was gone, and I felt intense self-loathing. I guess I have just a bad way of looking at things, and that's how my husband takes care of the situation. Besides, it would be better for Karen to be happy than to be depressed. I thought about it and stopped thinking about it after that. But maybe I should have thought about it more carefully. After a while, my husband made a shocking revelation to me.
There's something I want you to hear.
I was folding laundry at the time when my husband said that. I stopped and faced him because he was talking to me with such a serious look in his eyes.
I've been missing something ever since my brother passed away. It's a wound that won't go away. Even when I'm with you, it wouldn't heal.
I was shocked, to be honest. I thought I was taking care of my husband in my own way. I was trying to do for him what my mother-in-law did for me. But that didn't seem to be enough. It hadn't been that long since my brother-in-law passed away. I was trying not to show that I was upset, nodding and listening to the rest of the story.
But I've met someone who makes up for that. Yes, you see, it's Karen, Bobby's wife. She, too, said losing her husband and left a hole in her heart. I think there are some things that can be filled only by those who have lost someone they love. The wind has changed. I have a bad feeling. I try to deny in my heart that it couldn't be true, but to no avail. The love of my life was my brother's wife, Karen. Please, divorce me. My head was spinning. What the hell is he talking about? At that moment, I remembered what had happened at the hospital. My husband was on a business trip and Karen was out of touch. They showed up at the hospital together, smelling the same perfume. Karen is my destiny. I know that now. We just met in the wrong order. That's why he was so obsessed with her. You've been planning to do it for a long time, haven't you? That's what I found myself saying. What do you mean? Are you saying I've been having an affair for a while? I came back to myself in surprise at my husband's fury. I explained to him how I had thought that, even though it had come out of my mouth unconsciously. But the more I told him about the perfume and how friendly he was taking care of her, the more I said, the more I was laying out the allegations of infidelity. My husband felt attacked and his mood soared. He showed his displeasure and made it clear to me. We're still grieving, and you're talking about such a thing? I can't believe it. I can't be with you anymore. And my husband left. The sight of my husband's back as he left, and the fact that he told me that I was not his life partner. The accident and the shock hit me at the same time, and all I could do was cry. It was so painful that I felt like I had to do something, or else I wouldn't be able to handle it. I picked up my brother-in-law's belongings. Bobby was into taking photos and kept a neat album of his photos. I opened it to see a picture of us on a trip together. The happiness in the photo is no longer here, and that I may have destroyed even the possibility of feeling it. All I can feel is sadness. As I flip through the album and look at the various photos, something slips through the cracks. It was an envelope. A few days later, my husband and I ended up divorcing. When my mother-in-law learned about my husband's story and his intention to divorce, she cried and apologized to me. I am so sorry for my stupid son. I know you will be happy, Stella. Even though we are separated from each other, you and I are still family. So if you ever need me, please call me immediately. My mother-in-law was always being good to me, and she has nothing to apologize for. Making such a kind person cry, I was sad than anything to leave my mother-in-law. I moved out of my parents-in-law's house and started living alone. I lived alone before I got married, but I am irresistibly lonely. However, such loneliness only lasted for a while. 2 months later, I got a call from my mother-in-law. Apparently, my ex-husband and Karen moved out on their own. Because of this, my mother-in-law had too much space in her house. She's thinking of getting rid of it and starting a life on her own. But she moves out, she won't have any friends in the neighborhood to rely on. She asked me if it was okay for her to move to a place close to me. Hearing my mother-in-law's voice, as she spoke with a sad smile on her face, I suggested that we move in together. At first, she was reluctant to do so, but I convinced her that I couldn't leave her alone. In the end, we bought an apartment and moved in together. Since we started living together, we became more like real mother and a daughter than ever before. These days went on for a while. I received a call from a number I didn't recognize, and it was her, Karen. I asked her what she wanted after all these years. How come the house is not there? And what's more, you've been adopted? I thought my heart would stop in surprise when she suddenly shouted in my ear. There is now another building in the place of my parents-in-law's house that my mother-in-law sold. Since she sold the land, it is not strange that there is a new building there. Also, the adoption was proposed by my mother-in-law when we decided to move in together. The exact opposite of when we suggested we move in together. And I was initially reluctant to ask her to go that far. But my mother-in-law said she wanted to be a real family,
and I didn't mind. So I agreed. However, the fact that Karen complained about it made me think that she was also after Bobby's inheritance, which was inherited by my mother. Soon after my mother and I moved in together, it came up many times that Karen might have married my ex-husband for Bobby's money. And now that she had already inherited his fortune, but we managed to keep the rest. I opened my mouth, knowing that the time had come. I don't deserve to be told what to do. We're not family anymore. I want you to be thankful that I didn't ask for alimony for the affair. If that's what you want, I'll ask for it. My ex-husband told my mother that he was divorcing me, and she declared herself insulated from him. Karen seemed a little taken aback by my response, but regained her composure and retorted. You had accused Jaden of adultery even before we were together, hadn't you? You made him want to leave you. You should be ashamed of yourself. Huh. What if I told you I have proof? Her response is so predictable that I counter with a bit of a snark. Silence flows from the phone. I found that letter. Yes, the envelope. That came out of my brother-in-law's photo album the day my husband left me. The letter was filled with his grudge. The doctor told me I don't have much time. So, when you read this, I won't be around anymore. This letter contains the hidden evidence of my wife's affair with Jaden. If Jaden or Karen finds this letter, they can destroy it all. Then I will have failed miserably. But if you, Stella, find this letter, let my wife and my brother be punished for what they deserve. My brother-in-law's letter also contained his feelings for his wife. After we got married, Karen quit her job. She thought it was my job to make her happy, so she just sat around the house and did nothing. When I told her that we should help each other out a little more, she got upset. And then there were days when she shut me out when she thought I wasn't making enough money. I had a hard time accepting that my wife had changed so much. So if I could work hard and make her life easier, I hoped she would return to her old self. But that was her true self after all. I'm so ashamed that I didn't see it. If my ex-husband and Karen hadn't gotten involved, I wouldn't have tried to make things worse. But if I let her misdeeds go any further, I had to take action for my late brother-in-law. I'll destroy them both. Bobby saw through you two a long time ago, and he had gathered all the evidence. And I am going to ask you to pay alimony. It was easy to imagine her shaking over the phone. She's trying to sound as strong as she can, with that shaky voice of hers. There is no way you can ask for alimony now that we're married. That's a bluff. You are trying to scare me, but it's not going to work. I'll sue you for blackmail. Be my guest. Paying for a lawyer costs a lot, you know? Well, I'm sure it's a waste of money. You seem to have studied the division of property, but you didn't learn about adultery. So naive. You thought Bobby didn't know anything about it, did you? I didn't flinch at all. Then she hung up the phone violently. Later, I filed a claim for alimony with my ex-husband and his new wife through a lawyer. After a while, my ex-husband contacted my mother. Apparently, he wanted to leave Karen and live with my mother. Karen's original bad character, combined with her anger at being charged with alimony. She seemed to be doing pretty much whatever she wants to do to my ex-husband. My ex-husband's voice is so tired. It's hard to believe they were newlyweds. Like my late brother-in-law, he failed to see her true nature. It's amazing what blood can do to you. I'm sitting next to my mother, talking on the phone. Come on, Mom. I didn't know she was like that. I can't live with her anymore. I just want to be with you and my Stella again. What the hell? You're the one who said she wasn't the one and left. I won't allow a man to hurt my daughter. I won't let you live with us. If you are really sorry, you'll first pay the alimony. If you do anything to me or Stella, I'll call the police. No, Mom. Please. I can hear the pathetic voice of my ex-husband on the phone. But he is, after all, my mother's own blood. She couldn't forgive him, so she gave him mercy. If you really can't pay the alimony, I'll pay it for you instead of a living will. In exchange, you must forego all inheritance after my death, and never to appear in front of us again. My ex-husband had no choice but to accept my mother's last act of mercy. We never heard from them again. My mother and I still spend time together. When we are happy, we rejoice together. And when we are sad, we comfort each other. And if we have a bad day, we've strengthened our bond enough to be able to clash with each other. Bobby, I've got your revenge. I still remember my brother-in-law. Although we are not related by blood, now I have a strong bond with my mother, and we will live happily together as a family.